Hey, welcome to Course Correction. This is Michelle, and I am here today with my friend Fernando. You probably know him from previous episodes of Between Us Girls. He is the most important psychic medium used to be in Houston, Texas. Now he lives somewhere else. He's abandoned us. Um, but today we are just going to shoot the shit with Fernie and just kind of talk about life and everything we've kind of been going through. It's been a while since he and I really chatted, so let's start the show. I feel like it's been so long.
I know it has been a long. When was the last time I saw you? I saw you last year. Was it before last year?
Remember the last time that we met up? I didn't go. You did meet with the other girls.
See, I forget stuff like that, so I don't remember. But yeah, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a long time, but I see you're growing. I'm really proud of you. I'm excited that you're into podcasting now.
Yeah, I know. Well, y'all are the ones who inspired me because I had thought about it, but I was like, no one's going to listen to a damn podcast. Like, no one's going to listen to my podcast. So why would I do one? It's just another thing to add to my list of things that I already do. And then once I started to do it, it felt so natural to me. I actually really enjoy doing the podcast because it allows me to just be me, uncensored, unfiltered, and just let it roll the way it's going to roll. When you do like a video on YouTube, you have to like look at the camera. You're only talking to the camera. You're only talking to yourself. When you're doing the podcast, even though I have a camera on me now when I do it, but it's like I'm just talking to the microphone and I'm just letting myself go wherever I want to go. And I don't have to script or edit or focus so much on what I'm going to say. It can be however sloppy and messy and shitty it's going to be. So
yeah, and that's one thing that I'm kind of excited about. We renamed the show, we being me and me. Renamed, well, me, you, and me. We renamed the show Course Correction because, I've kind of gone through a little bit of a change and I want to talk about things, but I don't want to structure everything. Right. And that was one of the things about Between Us Girls that got really interviewing. So it was like the topics sort of became secondary to the interview. And I feel like you can still learn a lot about people just by having conversation.
Right. Well, and you went through because Between Us Girls, that's been such a established name now. I mean, a lot of people understand that that's what it is. It was Between Us Girls, and so right now with Between Us Girls, now it's that name is transitioned over to Course Correction. Where did you get the Course Correction from? Because that's a big difference from Between Us Girls over to Course Correction.
Well, I feel like I'm in a transition, and I feel like it was time for me to change the course of my life, if that makes sense. I spend a lot of time feeling like I need, and looking at it from a place of not having, as opposed to, feeling good and living this life of abundance, which is what helps to attract, the things into your life that, will make you happier or whatever. Not necessarily make you happier, but if you say, I believe in the law of attraction, you have to find that positive vibration. And for me, I just needed to change that direction. So when you actually brought the name, I was like, wow, that's really good. I think that totally works. So really what I have planned is Between Us Girls is the network. So I'm going to see if other people want to do shows and just run them on my feed.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't... It's all about the human connection, right? And I mean, the way we understand each other is through each other. And so our interaction with each other and dealing with real life circumstances and situations, that's what helps us to understand each other and to grow from each other. Because I know from my personal experience that just by being around people, I've learned a lot about myself and about people in general. And you guys, actually dealing with you guys and going to the podcast and recording with you guys made me more comfortable with being able to do this wherever. So I think if I did this for, another group or whatever, I would feel just as comfortable because I was able to have that experience through y'all. Not only that, but, it's like you get to see people in different ways and in different lights, and you get to, it's like bouncing that energy off of others in a way where you just learn a lot in a very short period of time versus the millennials nowadays, we all think our way through everything. So people think things, but they don't have the experience to back up what they're saying. So they're just kind of shooting shit from their mouth without really realizing the significance or how it's going to impact each other.
Right. Actually, I saw a meme today that said, think or connect before you speak. So it had
Mm-hmm.
like a little plug in your brain, from your
Mm-hmm.
mouth to your brain. But that's really like people don't sit and say, okay, how should I react to this next thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you don't really realize the impact of this action today on what's going to happen in a couple of weeks or months or whatever. And I
Yeah.
think, that's one thing that people kind of miss. Like you said, millennials, they're so quick to always be like, well, like the internet is full of people popping off all day, fighting. I'm like, oh, did you even think about what you were going to say before you said that? That was pretty ugly, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So course correction is just about what? Like, what's the idea? What's that idea? What does it represent?
It's the idea of actually, it's just like, it's not even some deeply philosophical thing. It's just me trying to figure out this thing. Every day, every time I talk to somebody, my goal is to learn something. Um, and I want people listening to learn because what I really want is for more people to wake up and understand that, there's a lot more out here than just going to work.
Right.
You don't
But
have to.
yeah, most people they get so comfortable with what's normal
Hmm.
and with what's acceptable that they
Hmm.
tend to repeat that over and over and over. It's like it's that thing that if you have a bunch of friends and they think it's okay for their husbands to beat them, then by all means you're probably going to end up in a relationship where it's okay for your husband to beat you
Right.
because it's a norm, or if you spend time with friends and they think it's okay to steal, for you, if you ever step outside of that moral code, it's okay, and that puts you in a very unique bracket. And what I'm always telling people is, in order for you to move forward and to move up or to move in a different direction, you have to align yourself with the energy and the people that associate with that direction,
Hmm.
even if it's out of your comfort zone. And sometimes people who you're leaving behind are going to say, well, you're just, you're stuck up or you're full of yourself, or who do you think you are, etc. I know I got it with my family when I decided to move in a direction that didn't align with, coming from the hood or coming from that
Yeah.
place where, you hire someone to do your yard. I'm like, well, yeah, what? I don't want to do it. I
Yeah.
don't like, why wouldn't I? I'm giving that person a job. They're feeding their family. Why wouldn't I
Right.
do that?
Right.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, that's kind of what happens, I think. And I think it's been happening for me. I'm not even sure how I ended up on this like spiritual path, but it was like January. I was kind of like, oh, I can do this. Oh, look at that, what I did. Look at that. I didn't know I was doing all that. I bet I can do this too. So I started like researching and trying to like figure out, well, how am I doing all this? Is it something I'm doing consciously, subconsciously? You know what I mean? So I started kind of digging into manifestation and trying to figure out what it is, like, what is
Yeah.
going on. And I feel like I've had a lot of people, and I would say it's like conditions in my life that I've been in that are still the same, but I've changed. So it's really hard for me to find a positive vibration there because I
Yeah.
feel like, oh, there's so much wrong, you know.
You can't lose weight and get on a clean diet if you're surrounded by people who eat fried chicken every day.
Mm,
If every day they're eating something that's dripping in grease and it's fried, or it's covered in cheese, or it's covered in chili, whatever, how are you going to get healthy? How are you going to like make a change for yourself? Especially since it's almost like you're going to go back and start eating that stuff all over again. So, how are you going to change? How are you going to make a difference?
that's absolutely true because it's like the higher you try to go, the more you try to say, it's okay. This is
Mm,
not it. There's more, this does not define me. Somebody
mm.
walks in the office and it's like, remember that time that you know what I mean? And it's like, it's so hard
Yeah.
to get away from. And I see a lot of people, like friends of mine, who, they're trying to post more positive things or they're trying to talk about their enlightenment or, how they feel, how they feel happier or whatever. And then there's people who are like, you just said last month. I'm like, people can grow. You know what I mean? And I guess I find it hard to understand why we're not allowed to outgrow others.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, it comes with the territory. I think it's an occupational hazard is when you start developing spiritually, you cease developing humanly in a way that supports the human reality and makes the spiritual energetic reality more of the reality.
Right.
And so it's like, why am I going to spend more time trying to be, more humanly involved in my issues here when I need to kind of get above it because
Right.
this no longer serves me. This is not where, yeah.
Right.
I get it. I totally get it. Yeah.
I mean, it's very tough because you really can't fix anything from that level either, because you're
Hmm.
looking at it from in these trenches instead of, like you said, in an elevated state where you're like, okay, I see where, maybe I can change this or I can change this, and then this will flow better. You can't do
Yeah.
that from sitting in it. And it's like people trying to keep you sitting in the shit.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think like for me, one of the things that I dealt with when I was making a course correction, because
Mhm.
for me, course correction isn't just, uh-oh, I made a boo-boo and I'm headed in the wrong direction. Course correction is about I've gone down this road, I've gone down this path, but it just doesn't serve me anymore, or it doesn't align with my greater vision, or my grander vision has changed and I need to align with that now.
Mm.
So I mean, it's not that you've been going the wrong way the whole time, it's just that the way you're going is no longer purposeful, is no longer servicing you. So for me, when I made a course correction, I think moving here to New Mexico was a course correction for me because in Houston, I mean, I had established the life that I had been trying to establish for years. I had a nice home. I had like two cars that I was,
Hmm.
paying for. I had a established business. And so it was a very like, wow, this is pretty good. You're doing really well. Your name is up there, but
Hmm.
it wasn't everything that I wanted. It didn't come with everything that I was expecting that would come with it, which was
Yeah.
I didn't feel like me there was enough of me in all of that. There was enough of me giving to others and to fulfilling for others, but having a nice house and having an extra car doesn't make me me. It's not
Mm.
really who I am at the core. It's just stuff. It's just status, right? So for me it was like, you know what? this isn't this doesn't sing in my soul. This is not singing inside of me. And I think when Ed and I, my partner, when we came to New Mexico and we stepped foot in Santa Fe, it was like the vibration, the internal ringing of like, bitch, this is where you belong. Like, this
Yeah.
is where you need to be. I don't care for how long, but this is where you need to be. It was so strong and so intense. And I wasn't anticipating or expecting it, that I didn't even know how I was going to make that happen. I just knew I needed to make it happen. And even though it took me about 3 or 4 years to make that change, to make that
Hmm.
switch and change my business, model, where instead of in person, I was doing like video or phone or e-readings, and offloading the house and getting rid of all the excess, because I went through a lot of spring cleaning in the process of moving, because moving ain't easy, girl. I
I
mean,
don't know
it's
it.
just more shit you gotta pack up and move. So for me, it was like, this is kind of like a not a makeover but a reset, where this is like, be intentional with what you're trying to create, Bernie. Be intentional with what you really want to achieve in this new space and in this new place of growth and opportunity for you. So for me, that was the course correction, acknowledging who I had become, who I was. And although it was great and I really got a lot from it, it no longer served me. And so I
Mhm.
had to pull a Madonna and reinvent myself and
Yeah.
readjust. And so here I am in a very, very positive space and in a very purposeful place in my life. And I'm really much more intentional with what I do today than I was, 2 years ago or a year
Right.
ago. So for me, that was my course correction, is acknowledging what no longer served me and then just say, okay, let me reinvent the wheel here so that it can work in my favor.
Hmm. I think that was one of the things that led me kind of down this path as well. Is when you first started talking to us about your vision wall or your vision board.
Hmm.
But when you did the Santa Fe thing, and that's what was on your board, I was like, wow, I'm really proud of him. Because
Mm,
that means that he really did what he, first of all, imagined he was going to do. But
right.
then you did what you said you would do. And it just started to, I think I told you when you first came, I was like, I feel like one day I might be a psychic. Not a psychic, but like I felt like I had some, like some gifts or something. always,
Mm-hmm.
because even when I was a kid, I always felt like I had like sort of like a premonition, not necessarily a
Mm-hmm.
premonition, but more like a strong
Precognitive.
feeling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, well, maybe. But it made me kind of think, well, maybe. But it wasn't like something I was really pursuing until my coworker in November, she passed away. And it really just shook me up, because it was me and her together. And whenever the work really was a huge workload, I was just like, I didn't want to say this is why she died, but I'm like, this is a contributing factor to the stress that caused her to have a heart attack.
Yeah.
And this is not my purpose. This is not it. So I started kind of looking at what I was good at, and I started trying to figure out what my actual purpose might be. Of course, that takes really looking at yourself, and that's a tough thing too.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of people, they think that purpose is something that you are, um, purpose is one thing that you're supposed to do here. And purpose is not one thing. Purpose is an intentional living. It's a mode of functioning and operating in the world where you mean what you do, you mean what you say, you mean what you are, and it's and vice versa. So it's more of an intentional living, um, point of experience. So when I'm doing something, I could be giving to the world, I can be doing all kinds of things that make me look successful. That
Mm.
doesn't mean that I'm living with purpose, because I
Yeah.
could just functioning on autopilot. And back then it sounds like you were functioning on autopilot. When I was at Starbucks, I was functioning on autopilot. And so now everything that I do every day is intentional. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
do it. I'm embracing and accepting that that is what I'm going to do today, regardless of whether I feel like doing it that day or not. That's what I'm going to do. So purpose changes as you change, as you evolve. Purpose changes.
Right. Like I think that's kind of what I've been noticing a lot now is that I try to stop and think about
Mm.
what I'm going to say, what I'm thinking, how I'm feeling about myself, how I'm feeling about my environment, because I'm still there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like I said, it's almost like every time I'm like, yeah, I love this Abraham Hicks video. I just love it. And then
Mm.
here comes like some crap email that's about like
Yeah.
something so surface level, but they're like, ah! I'm like,
Yeah.
no one needs to have a coronary behind this. But if I say that, everyone's like, oh, how
Yeah.
dare you? I'm like, this is
Yeah.
not it. I'm like, there's
Yeah.
so much more we can be doing. Like, I even see ways we could improve our department or,
Mm.
things like that. But people just are so resistant. And it's like, I just know now that I have to move,
Right.
and I will do it the right way eventually.
Yeah.
I've been trying to break out of that jail, but they're like, no.
Yeah. Speaking of trauma, like, did you see, like, Ellen is now, she's finally coming out about her life and how I think she was molested by her stepfather.
Ellen?
Now, yeah, Ellen DeGeneres, and she's been talking about it, and it's been like all over the news and such. So it's just interesting because you see someone who's that successful, you see someone going through something. It's the same thing with the Oprah effect. Like, people who have achieved so much, and yet there's a story behind it, and what they went through and what they came from. So, and I get it, because I mean, I've been there.
Yeah, which I was going to talk to you about this actually. So, people who experience great trauma, they usually, like you said, they're all fairly successful. They live these really great purpose-driven lives, and they usually live this in abundant lifestyle, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's usually the trauma that kind of makes them go, I can be something else. I don't
Hmm.
have to this where I am, where I'm suffering so much. I
Hmm.
can I can rise above this. And I think there's a problem in American culture where we don't embrace each other and say, I know what, just like you and I both said, I know what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
If you want to talk, I'm here for you. We
Right.
need teachers when you're going through these things. And like in other cultures, the tribe, the shaman would say, oh, I see what you're going through, and take them and give them tools and teach them and explain what that experience is, instead of, you probably are schizophrenic. You need to, you know what I mean? Because that's what happens in American culture. They take you and they say, well, you're talking about seeing things that I don't see, feeling
Mm-hmm.
things that I can't feel, and doing all these things that are totally impossible, you must be mentally unstable, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And I guess it's just like a lot of people have been molested or assaulted, maybe non sexually, but a lot of those people do experience a spiritual awakening, maybe not directly after, but at some point. Um, I just wish we had more teachers who were
Mm-hmm.
open about what they experience, you know?
But that's I think that's become an issue in our culture, in our spiritually like developing culture, because we're not just developing as humans and as people and as a society, but we're a lot of us are developing spiritually as well. We've
Mhm.
understood the importance and significance of that. And so when you look at that and you see the importance of developing spiritually is about understanding like the human condition. It's about getting to a place where you look at your life, you look at it in a unique way, and then you use it as a stepping stone towards whatever you are going to evolve to, whatever
Mhm.
you're going to become. And in our culture, in our, it's one of those things where I totally lost my train of thought. What the hell were we talking about? I totally lost. You said something about you were talking about like shamans and totally went into this whole other direction, girl.
Spiritual teachers, and you
Yeah.
said that is something that is becoming an issue in spiritual community, and
Oh,
then you started talking.
not leading by example, and
Okay.
that's my biggest gripe. My biggest gripe about um, being spiritually aware and sharing what you have, sharing what you know, sharing what you understand with people is that people don't use their experience as a way to teach others. They simply it's almost like those experiences meant nothing. Where I'm just going to give you the textbook lesson. It's
Mhm.
a teacher. It's like a teacher up at the chalkboard and they're just reading out of the book, but they're not
Mhm.
necessarily giving you examples of what they mean. And so
Right.
I've known so many people throughout the years who are so spiritual, but they have no experience to back up what they know.
Mm.
They only know it like intellectually, they don't know it experientially. And
They don't have any feeling for it.
yeah, there's nothing to back up what they're saying. And you'll find that there's a lot of people out there who propose to be spiritually enlightened individuals, but yet they're not really giving you examples of their own experience that
Mhm.
have helped them along their way. And I'm like, why would you rob others of that information? Because it's helped you. Why wouldn't it help somebody else? Which is
Right.
whenever I'm like giving a spiritual teaching, I try to link it back to something that I've understood or gone through that
Mhm.
helped to get there. It's like this one guy. I knew this guy who he's well known now, but he was always touting himself as like a relationship person, and people could go to him for relationship advice and stuff. And he got pretty far along on his journey of being this relationship expert by just using that catchphrase. But yet, when I got to know him and I was like, well, when was your last relationship? And he was like, well, I haven't been in a relationship in like 6 years and I owe all these back payments to my baby mama. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, like it's like a really complicated, fucked up situation. I was like, oh my God. And I said, well, how can you, like, yes, I said, don't you think that someone's going to get smart at some point and they're going to approach you and say, what did you go through that helped you understand that?
Right.
Don't you think someone's going to figure out you just, letting whatever come out of your mouth, but they ain't no substance behind it? Like at some point, the smartest people will ask the smartest questions. They won't just
Right.
accept it and take it as like, oh, free food, free food, free food. It's like,
Mhm.
that's made with don't eat that, don't eat that. So and unfortunately nowadays it's like people everybody wants meaning, everybody wants to experience an awakening, everybody wants to
Right.
have that moment where they feel enlightened or they feel like they are reaching new heights of their own human experience from a different perspective. But at the same time, like as picky as we need to be with our relationships, whether they be whether they be family, friends, lovers, etc., that's as
Mhm.
picky as we need to be with our spiritual
Mentors.
teachers,
Yeah.
mentors. Yeah, pick the right people. I mean, my mentor, when in my earlier stages, my mentor, my mentor in my earliest stages, I was just like in awe of her. and then the first time she farted, that was just like, whoa, you farted? And she was like, what? Like, she was so embarrassed. And I was just like, oh my God, I love you even more because you're real.
Yeah.
But then she got to be too real. And then I was like, oh, no, baby, let's,
Mm-hmm.
I long for the days when you didn't fart, So
Okay.
it was one of those things. But you got to be picky with the people that you follow, or picky with the people that you subscribe to, and make sure that it's in alignment with your ideals. And I think that nowadays, especially in the political arena, like people, and this is on both sides. This is not just like to dump on any particular party, but nowadays people, they just, I don't care how they go about doing it, as long as they get it done. And if they run over a bunch of people in the process of doing that, that's fine with me. And people are not considering each other. And what they don't realize is that when that's all said and done, we're all going to have to clean up the mess, because we have to deal with those issues in our everyday lives and circumstances.
Yeah.
Just today, a few minutes ago, before we got on the call, my partner, he's like, hey, did you hear what happened at the playground? I'm like, no. He's like, someone took nail polish, and they went to the playground, and they, on those little horses that the kids ride, they went and put on there a swastika, and then they put Trump 2020. And I was just like, but for me, it's just like, this is the message that is getting sent out. Again, not just from any political party, but we're not hearing each other. We're not listening to each other. And one side is trying to beat the other side. The other side is trying to beat the other side. And so we're just constantly in this fight. And for me, it's like, I'm not even associating myself with any particular party, period, just because for me, it's like, it's not even about being a Democrat or being a Republican or being this or being that. It's just, I'm Bernie. And honestly, at this point, I'm just going to align with the energy and the ideas that best represent me if I have to make a choice, And people are not being picky about their mentors. They're not being picky about the people they subscribe to. And that's a problem.
Well, you know what I think part of that is that people are looking at who has the most money, or who looks like they have the most money. And a lot of time that's who they go after as far as who they want to be like. But I feel like, you've been a good mentor to me, and I mean, we are really just friends, but I can always come to you, and I feel like you teach me, and that's what's important. But I also know that you've experienced things which make you knowledgeable. And I find that to be funny too, is like, you'll meet somebody knowledgeable, and instead of feeling like, oh, I can learn from that person, it's like a jealousy, or a, like well, she probably doesn't know all that, or he probably doesn't know that much, instead of listening to your intuition, which said, wow, that person probably is really, knowledgeable on that subject.
Yeah. But, then there's also the people who have a ton of experience, and they ain't even got a pot to piss in, because they don't use that experience to arrive. Instead, they use that experience to sustain. And so it just doesn't help them.
Yeah, a lot of people have that victim mentality, and they get stuck there, because it's totally okay to feel sad or whatever, or feel anything. But the longer you stay there, and if you don't do anything with that, then it's like you said, you kind of just sustain. You don't grow at all. Growth is important, child.
Up to a certain point. And then at some point, it's just, you too big, and you're just like, okay, bye.
That's it? Then you go home?
And you go home. That's it. You're done.
Man. I'm like, how long? No.
Oh my God, girl. Yeah. With the world we live in today, yeah. Some days it's just like, okay.
It is. It's been very tough. And I think for me, because I'm just kind of coming into it, I'm like, oh, you mean to tell me that I have to walk every day with what's in my head around these people who are like playing a game or something, you know what I mean? And the more you share with people, the more you look crazy, and you just end up ostracized, alienated, and you're like, well, I don't have any friends, but I'm very knowledgeable on the subject of spirituality.
Well, speaking of being crazy and being alienated, so what did you think of my UFO picture?
Actually, I thought it was really cool, and I think that there's are extraterrestrials. And then I saw this last week that somebody else saw some UFOs. They saw two of them. I think it was some police or something, air police or somebody. Did you read that article?
Mm-mm. So, well, I mean, I saw the two articles that just showed up in the last couple of days. I think one was from like the Washington Post and the other one was from like the New York Times, I think. But it's pretty fascinating because, and Edward and I were talking about this yesterday when we were hiking, that it's not even a question of if it's real or if it's something, we know that there are crafts entering our aerospace that are not ours, and they're
Hmm.
definitely not capable from other countries, because if they had those kinds of capabilities, we'd be in trouble.
Oh yeah.
So it's not ours. So definitely coming from another place. So it's not a question of if, it's a question of, okay, well, what's the story behind that? Because you got so many conspiracy theorists online, and you got all these different shows like Ancient Aliens and all these
Yeah.
different narratives being spinned out. So there's like all these different people that believe these different things, and even though there's some um, there are some people who are they're they have the same ideas about what's going on. You don't know, like, you don't really know, and I don't know what the hell's going on. All I know is there's craft coming in. They could have blown us up a long time ago. They have those capabilities. They ain't, so I'm assuming that they're not evil, but at the
Right.
same time, you just never know. So, and when I got that picture, I was just I wasn't even trying to get a picture
Hmm.
of a UFO on camera. I was just taking a picture because it's like, oh, this is so beautiful. I got to take a picture of this. And so I snapped, and then I snapped again. It was like the 2-second difference between the
Hmm.
two pictures. It's in one picture, it's not in the other. But I was like, I was
That is
going nuts trying to,
crazy.
yeah, I was going crazy trying to figure out what the hell this is. And if you ever get into the whole alien and the UFO like phenomenon, there's a guy named what's his name? His name is Dr. Stephen Greer, and he has a few documentaries out. One is called Unacknowledged, which you should totally watch because it's pretty
Okay.
cool. And he talks about how all of the evidence is there, but it's unacknowledged.
Hmm.
And he created this method for communicating with those extraterrestrials or aliens, if there are some. And it
Okay.
uses a form of meditation, and it's basically telepathically communicating. And the way you telepathically communicate, and he calls it a CE5, I think it's called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Yeah, CE5
Okay.
protocol. That's what it's called. But essentially, you meditate, and then you visualize yourself coming out of your body, and then you visualize yourself going into space, and then you visualize yourself looking for
These
a craft,
aliens.
or looking for them based off of an energy signature, and then you point them back towards the earth, and then you bring them back to the exact spot that you are meditating, to give
Mm.
them an idea of where you are on the planet so they can show up for you.
So
And so
you
I
like
thought,
you ping them.
yeah, you ping them pretty much. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I was like, I don't know. I was like, they seem like they know who they want to talk to these days, so I don't really know that would work. So the picture that I took of the UFO was in Sedona, and that was, I believe, that was like in the end of April, I believe.
Hmm.
So a week before Sedona, a week before we went to Sedona, I woke up in the middle of the night because I had some indigestion, and I was like, "Ooh, I gotta." It was just burning my throat, so I got up to go get some water and maybe like an antacid or whatever. So as I was walking over, and this was like around 3 o'clock in the night, it's pretty like in the middle of the dead in the middle of the night, and I went, got my water, got my pill, and then I was heading back to the bedroom, and the sky here is just so unobstructed, and there's so little light pollution that when stars are out, they just like, it's like diamonds in the sky. It's so
Mm.
pretty. And I was like, and I opened the blinds and I looked outside, and I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. I want to be out there. I want to just be under the stars, because
Mm.
it's so pretty. So I put on my robe and I went to the room. I put my shoes on, and Ed's like, what are you doing? I was like, I just want to be outside. I want to be in the stars. He's like, okay, whatever. So then, yeah. So then, and it's funny because it's not like I do that all the time, but I went out there and I sat in our lounger, and I was just sitting there looking and staring at the night sky. And I was just like, guys, if y'all are up there, I would love to see you, or at least have an experience where it shows me that you exist. Like, I would love it. And I did that visualization for like a 2-second visualization. It just was like, you right here, right here. That was it. And then I was like, whatever. And then I sat there and I kept looking at the stars. Nothing happened, nothing extraordinary. It was just beautiful stars. And then it got, after about 30, 45 minutes of sitting out there, it got a little chilly. And I was like, okay, I'm coming back inside. Then, of course, fast forward, we're in Sedona, and I'm at Bell Rock, which is one of the places where there's these like phenomenal energy vortices that are
Mm.
spiritually like whatever. And what I didn't realize is that that area is known for extraterrestrial or UFO craft or sightings.
Mhm.
But when you look online, you try to find evidence or pictures. There's not a lot of them, but
Yeah.
it's supposedly known for it because they say that they use the vortices or they use the energies as energy things as like wormholes to go through space or whatever. So I was like, man, whatever. But I wasn't, when I was there, I didn't know any of this. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm expecting to experience a vortex. And when I was there, I didn't experience the vortex. I just felt kind of chilled out and calm.
Mhm.
But I was like, well, this is beautiful. I've got to take pictures. And like I said, I was taking pictures, and so I took a picture, and then I took another picture, and it was the 2 second difference between the two. It's in one picture, it's not in the other. And afterwards, and I didn't even realize it at the time until we got back to New Mexico a few days later, and I was going through my pictures, and I was like, oh, this is a really nice one. This is a really nice one. I'll use this one. And then I was like, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? And then I zoomed in, and I was like, and like as soon as I saw it, yeah. As soon as, and I didn't even think about what I did. Like that totally wasn't even on my radar. It was more like I had the gay gasp, like, like it was like, oh my god. And so I was like, what is that? What is that? And then I was like examining it, like, is it a bird? Because I knew there were like helicopters in the area. I knew that there were crows flying around. So I was like, is this a crow? What is this? And then I showed Ed, and of course, Ed is like, oh, that's nothing. That's nothing. I'm like, that looks like a legit UFO. And he's like, no. And then I sent the picture over to his mom, and she's like, that's like a legit UFO. I was like, I know. And so I was like, okay, and then of course I posted it online, and people were like, it looks like a drone. It looks like this. It looks like that. My sister was like, it looks like a blimp. I was like, baby child, no, girl, that is not a blimp. Like, if you see a blimp living in Houston next to Minute Maid, when there's a blimp in the sky, that's a blimp. It says Budweiser beer right across the front, so it's a blimp. This was not a blimp. It wasn't even the right color for a blimp. So
Yeah.
I was like, girl, no. Oh, whatever. So then I started like comparing them with other things that I shot on the same trip. A helicopter wasn't a helicopter. I looked for a drone image online, and it didn't match up to a drone image. Now, it did look similar to a drone UFO shaped thing, but there's very few of them in the
Mhm.
world, and there's a company that's out of Switzerland or whatever, and
Oh.
they are the only that make them. So they're not even like widely popular yet. And I was like, so then I was like, I don't think so. And on top of that, that is not, you can still make out like these inner bevels, so it's not perfect. So there's still like indicators that it's like fake. And I was like, that's not it either. And then when we went up to like rock climbing or mountain climbing a few weeks later, I took pictures of a crow in a swooping position to see if I could mimic or recreate that view. And
You're
I
such
got
a
a
Taurus.
Oh my God, girl. So I got a picture of a raven, which were the birds that were there. And I got it in a view where it looks almost like a disc, except one side looks like it, the other side looks like a bird. So it wasn't that. So I was like, okay, now I know this ain't a goddamn, other than what I
Bird.
think it might be. So yeah,
Yeah.
but it was pretty cool. Now, whether it was that or not, I don't know. But I mean, it was just pretty cool to capture it within seconds of a shot. So
Yeah. I mean, that's what makes me kind of say that's definitely something extraterrestrial because of the time difference in between the two pictures. I mean, it doesn't really make sense because anything that's man-made would still have been
in the
in the
vicinity.
shot. Yeah.
Right, right.
I got your back, Bernie. I believe you.
Well, I loved talking to you and connecting with you again, and I know that we're going to do it more often now.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for participating with the podcast. Guys, for all of you, if you want to check out Michelle's new page, is it still under the Between Us
Yeah, I
Girls
still
website? So that's all the
so
same?
yeah, so I'm going to redo the website, but because I'm going to keep that name so that I can house whatever shows I want to create, because I might have I want to start some YouTube as well. So I just want to have one brand where I can put all my babies under there. So I'll just
So
keep.
so is it so is the course correction, is it the new name of Between Us Girls, or is it simply a series from Between Us Girls?
It's just a Between Us Girls production.
Oh, cool. Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, like
It's
collaborating with my other brand to make one. show, you know, underneath this, because I mean, I don't have any podcasts on that brand. I have nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Shit, I barely have clients. So, okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Course Correction with my friend Fernando Marone. Fernie, do you want to tell everybody where to find you?
Yes, so people can find me on my website at www.fernandomarone.com, and I've got everything on there so they can reach me, my podcast, my own personal podcast, and they can find me on Facebook Live, or just Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all of that stuff. Just go to my website.
Okay. All right, so yeah, you can find me at betweenuspodcast.com if you want to listen to new episodes or former episodes. I mean, that show was hella funny. Won awards, okay? And so, yeah, you can hit me on IG at MSCreativeAF or at Between Us Girls Podcast. And I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.